viewers, and welcome to the first huddle of 2024. We have Adam Greenblatt, BetMGM CEO, joining us. Adam, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here and to start 2024 off as we mean to continue, which is with a bang. So good. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got plenty to talk about. BetMGM, MGM Resorts, perhaps a little bit on Entain later on. But the first thing I do want to highlight, which our viewers probably will notice, is that I'm suited up, and admittedly I don't wear this every day, but you are swagged up. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
It's funny that this is the first question. So I never really understood this whole concept of swag until I moved to the US, and COVID accelerated all of this. So the reality is that you can't go to a hosted sports event or a VIP event without some kind of swag bag that's all branded. I don't know if you can see it. So I've really, as we were trying to build a cohesive business, a sense of brand ownership in the business during COVID, where everyone was working remotely, this was we would send swag bags to all of our employees, and they would show up every day wearing their BetMGM swag proudly. And it had an incredibly positive impact on accelerating the unification and identification with BetMGM, the brand. So I'm an absolutely firm believer. I've left my suit and ties, my three pieces behind, but you do look very smart today, I have to say. But today we show up as we do in an authentic way throughout the business, in our swag, donning the BetMGM brand.
I think that's quite a nice segue into something else I wanted to ask you. So when you go on the BetMGM website, the leadership team, including yourself, the top executives have BetMGM values, and yours is actually, maybe you can tell us what it is to test you whether you remember it. But if you tell us more about what and why.
Yeah. So the one that I've championed, in fact, I penned all four of them, obviously with my leadership team. But the one that I'm championing on the website is respect the game, and that's one of our core values. Respect the game. Look, we should never forget that we depend on our licenses in every state, and our gaming licenses, are a privilege. And so respecting the terms of those licenses is fundamental. It's like breathing air. If you're a human being, it doesn't happen without it. So conducting our business with transparency, fairness, I'd say radical candor is really what we aspire to, and what we talk about in the business, and also how we conduct ourselves in relation to our regulators. What you see is what you get. We won't try and hide the ball. That's the way we show up. And then there's the other element of this, of course, which is, in terms of respecting the game, which is about responsible gambling, which is fundamentally woven into everything we do, like respecting the sanctity of our gaming licenses, recognizing the importance, the fundamental, the existential importance of responsible gaming is vital for the sustainability of our sector. So that I talk about, that's how we show up as a brand, as a business.
So you've featured in the CEO special before for Gaming America, and obviously we can hear your South African accent. If we like to sort of go back to the beginning and build quite rounded profiles of our interviews, as you will remember from the CEO special. But if for the benefit of our viewers of this video, could you sort of go back to the beginning and tell us what it was like growing up in South Africa?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cape Town, which is at the very tip of Southern Africa, and so the topography is magnificent. The people are warm and friendly and family centric, and it was as I look back, a really nurturing environment for me, and I feel very lucky to the upbringing that I had. But as we all know, South Africa was oftentimes a tale of many aspects, and one of the features of South Africa, as I was growing up, in fact still today, is that there's a concept called Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient is the coefficient of income inequality. So it's the balance between the haves and the have-nots in a society. And South Africa, like some actually South American countries, score very, very highly, which means that there's a big disparity between the in terms of means between the haves and the have-nots. And what I learned from that, and that I think has stood me in good stead ever since, is that one needs to be versatile in who we're able to interact with. And there are certain values and principles which I think I learned from both my family, my parents, but also having been brought up in that environment, which are always be fair. I think that as a concept is also important for our sector. Always be fair, always be respectful, and it drives a necessity to be versatile. And, you know, having grown up in South Africa, then spent many years in the UK, now the last few years in the US, I think that versatility has also stood me in good stead. Also seeking to understand people with different perspectives, different socioeconomic realities. You know, I take that with me, and I'm grateful to my journey in South Africa for that. But not similarly, you know, the other thing that comes to mind. I was lucky enough to go on safari earlier this year with my older kids, and it had a very big impact on me. I came back to the business, and 3 times a week I speak to the whole business. You know, we get together, we talk about the successes, the failures, the challenges, what's on the agenda. And the thing that I shared with the whole business coming back from safari was, look, nature is as it is, and we saw it. Like on safari, you see it as it is, as it was designed. And my takeaway was, in nature, only the strong survive. It's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unfair. It's just the way it is. And so what I was relaying to our business was, we have to be the strong. And then, of course, it distills into, well, what does that mean? And long term, it means best product. Long term, it means maximizing the ROI in our cohort, buying players, acquiring players most efficiently, leaning into our differentiators. We'll talk about all of that, I'm sure, later. Mm-hmm. But really, that clarifying vision of only the strong survive in nature, and we're an extension of nature, was really profound for me. Anyway.
Yeah, I think in that answer, I can actually see a lot of parallels with what you've just said, and also the respect the game, BetMGM value. But interesting that the concept of kind of fairness and being strong, you know, really they can work together. Looking at your career, I guess, leading up to BetMGM, we both sit here as ex Ladbrokes, ex Entain, because I had a spell at Ladbrokes as well, and I find there's maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 2, maybe even people in the industry probably had a spell at Ladbrokes at some point. You know, a very successful company with a lot of growth at one stage, and you were heavily involved in that. Could you walk us through your kind of maybe the lessons you learned, particularly at Entain, but elsewhere in your career too?
Of course. So, you know, in a career journey, not everything goes right. And some of the big lessons I learned along the way were as a result of actually the things that didn't go right, and for which I'm very grateful. You know, what I learned along the journey was the importance of organizational design. It doesn't sound like glamorous or fancy, but having the right people in the right places, in the right structure, and structurally organize yourselves to ensure no bottlenecks in process, everyone's clear on roles and responsibilities. The importance of that is one of the key lessons I took from my experience at Ladbrokes. And combined with that, the importance of the role of the leader as architect of function. So if your leader doesn't know what good looks like, the function can't thrive. And so one of the first things I did when coming to the US, building out our executive team at BetMGM, was bring together the architects, many of whom had experience in betting and gaming, many of whom had regulatory experience. And I think that has stood us in very good stead as we built out the teams, as we built out the sub-functions beneath them.
Absolutely. There was a recent interview I conducted on the Huddle where I think it was Tom Waterhouse in Australia. We spoke about executives who have that vision, and some are very good at getting from A to B. Some, I think, as you described, they are the architects, and as you say, looking seeing what's good and knowing what good looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a couple of other things I thought would be helpful.
Yeah.
The role of incentives and values in decision making. So I was the strategy and deal person for Ladbrokes, Coral, for Entain, and frankly, that was the journey to my role today was putting in place the joint venture with MGM Resorts, and effectiveness in that role relied on really listening to your counterparty, and whether that be someone on the other side of the table you're trying to contract with, or an affiliate, or a strategic advisor, really listening to what they tell you, inferring from what they say, what their values, what it speaks of in terms of their values, and then questioning, how is this individual incented? What are the incentives of this individual? Because fundamentally, we make our decisions based on a combination of our values and what's in it for me. What are my incentives? And values, of course, can be less personal, so my contribution to the community, or social well-being, or it doesn't have to be. It sounds pretty stark. What's in it for me? But it's that combination and the balance of that combination that ultimately drives decision making.
Absolutely. I mean, you've mentioned the start of the BetMGM journey around 2018. Since then, so much has happened. Probably too much for us to go point by point through the answer. But if you were to maybe helicopter view, reflect on the journey since, and as you mentioned, we'll talk about a few more specific things later on. But overall, how do you look back on BetMGM since ground zero, since day one?
Tim, I look at our business, and it's a pinch me. Often it's wow, where did this? How? When we started it, and it was really just an idea, a set of contracts, and an ambition. It was difficult to imagine that BetMGM could be a business in 2023 that would generate $2 billion of revenue, year-on-year increase EBITDA by $350 million, employ 2,500 people around the world, and growing strongly. It's unfathomable. And yet here we are. I remember there was a critical moment, like in 2018, 2019. We did start more slowly, by the way. In 2018-19, there was we were finding our feet. We didn't have a pre-existing business in the US, so really it was there was an iGaming business that we absorbed, but there wasn't the BetMGM as we know it did not exist. So at the beginning, people looked at us and were like, fine, wrote us off. And I remember one of the analysts, and I've mentioned this in an analyst tweeted, this was partway through 2020, he said, where there were two before, now there are three. Speaking of the leading operators in the space.
Indeed, yeah.
Referring to the emergence of BetMGM as a serious podium player. And so that's, it's been staggering. It's been challenging. We laugh every time I speak to the business. We laugh. It's never a dull day in our sector. And it has truly been so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, iGaming. We've seen the growth of iGaming, the adoption outside of New Jersey of iGaming at a scale and a speed that I think has taken most industry observers by surprise. It's really staggering, the depth and the interest of the product and the market.
I mean, I can sense your passion for the industry and for the job, and I think this is an easy question that I'm bearing in mind for you to answer. Right now, what is the best thing for you about working at BetMGM?
So, look, our North Star is creating amazing experiences, responsible, entertaining experiences for our customers. That's everything. But you know what? That's somewhat abstracted from our day-to-day reality, because on our day-to-day, I speak to largely people that we work directly or indirectly with. Right? So because it's a B2C business, our daily player contact is somewhat abstracted. You know, I don't feel the joy of the 45% of our players who win every week, right? That's what it's really about. But really, the thing I take a lot of gratification from is that, in fact, I sent out a note, a Happy New Year and Happy Holidays note to the business. And some of the responses I got: this is the best place I've ever worked for. I appreciate the transparency with which you interact with us. I feel supported. I love my job. This, for me, given that people are choosing to be on this journey together with me, with other BetMGMers, and the fact that they can, you know, without prompting, without any reward, be so effusive about their positive experience that they're having with BetMGM, it's super gratifying.
I mean, certainly in terms of employee feedback, that's what you want to hear. But to flip it, perhaps unfortunately, I want to ask you what the most challenging aspect, and not that you mentioned prompting just now, not that I'm prompting a specific answer, but especially obviously as a journalist, I have to ask, with BetMGM being a joint venture, obviously a JV is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a little rarer than your bog standard organization.
Yeah, look, the most challenging aspect of our sector is, but there are a few dimensions. One is the competitive landscape. Competitive landscape, operating in a regulated, the US regulated environment, which is state by state. I'll come back to that. And then you've touched on it already. Operating in a joint venture structure adds dimensions of complexity, which just are what they are. You know, which we have and continue to navigate very, very successfully. So just discarding the third, we don't need to come back to it. The joint venture structure has been very effective for BetMGM. We've got from Entain, technology, product trading. We have from MGM Resorts brand access to their properties, the physical sports books, all branded in MGM Resorts properties, all branded BetMGM. To bring to life, frankly, the one of our differentiators for BetMGM, which is our omni-channel approach to players. But operating in the regulated environment continues to be very complex. You know, we currently today BetMGM's in 28 regulated jurisdictions, and each one has its own set of requirements, from a product to trading catalog to how we look after players, how we pay our players. You know, in the state of Iowa, if a player wins with a bet with certain odds where the payout is greater than a certain value, we need to go and look up a particular register to see if there are any claims on that player. Alimony, if there's any outstanding alimony payments, we need to withhold payments to that player in order to satisfy the regulatory requirements there. I mean, that's at a level of granularity and specificity for which there is sanction if we don't get it right, but it's only in one state. And so you multiply that by a number of states, it gets really, really complex, particularly when we're trying to organize ourselves from a product and operations perspective as efficiently as possible. You know, what you want to do is try and make as much common as you can, but build in a way which allows you to provide for these individual state requirements. And that's really tough. That's really challenging. And then, of course, the competitive landscape. The US is more fierce than anything I've seen before. The competitive intensity, the investment in product, the pace of product development, it's ahead of anywhere else in the world. And in my view, rightly so. You see one of our competitors, our primary listed competitor, like a $17 billion valuation. $17 billion valuation to me is I love seeing that. Why? Because we don't have to guess about the reward, the spoils for success.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to bring up the Bloomberg screen and there it is.
Yeah.
So investing appropriately for success in this market has a prize, has a value, and an ROI beyond anywhere else. And so the competitive intensity makes sense if you look at it through that lens.
Yeah, several interesting aspects of the answer. We'll talk more about the joint venture later. We'll talk more about the competitive landscape that you just mentioned. But that example, the IO example, that's a fascinating example, as you say. I think that level of granularity, that's the perfect way of describing it. But given the challenges and given the competitive landscape, a tremendous achievement for BetMGM this year, the Global Gaming Awards in Las Vegas won Digital Operator of the Year. The Chief Revenue Officer, Matt Prevost, was there. I spoke to him after the ceremony. How do you reflect on that award?
Sure. I reflect on it with tremendous pride, Tim. The Gambling Insider is behind the Global Gaming Awards, and they are both extremely credible. Well, the Gambling Insider is an extremely credible, influential, important publication. And so it's through that lens I look at this award and go, wow, this is really something. We also won Digital Operator of the Year in 2021, and we are investing accordingly and aiming to be the best. So look, these types of awards in and of themselves are a vote of confidence that the work, the daily, tireless work that our teams and the Entain and MGM teams are putting in to deliver against our collective BetMGM ambition is bearing fruit. Ultimately it's what's on the top line and what's on the bottom line. But these along the way reference points that we can point to and say, we're being recognized. It's particularly from really credible organizations. And that's a source of tremendous pride for us and encouragement for our people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great words to hear. My next few questions focusing, I think, on numbers. I think finances, market share. I'm sure a lot of viewers will love this segment. You talked already about kind of revenue and EBITDA, and the race to profitability, understandably a phrase, but not just a phrase, a whole topic that dominated financial discussions in 2023. Admittedly, not just for BetMGM, it was a positive for the likes of DraftKings, FanDuel, but BetMGM, particularly in a healthy position regarding EBITDA and profitability. How do you view your chances of building on this in 2024?
Yeah, so look, what we've set out to the public markets is that 2024 is an investment year for BetMGM. In 2023, we absolutely delivered on our external promises, our external commitments. We guided the external market to between 1.8 and $2 billion of revenue. We're going to come in at the top end of that range. We guided to EBITDA positive in the second half of the year. We will achieve that with still 10 and a half days to go in the year. With real daily volatility and fluctuations, we will achieve that in the second half of the year. And so the point of this is to demonstrate. We have demonstrated, BetMGM's leadership team and the business has demonstrated that we have a high degree of control of the profit result of our business. And as a result, we also have a high degree of confidence in the positive ROI, the net present value, the positive net present value of investing more assertively in player acquisition and player retention in 2024. We believe there is long-term value for shareholders in doing so because of the control that I expressed, the visibility that we have of our player base and our business. And so we have the support of both MGM Resorts and Entain to invest to our capacity in 2024, alongside, by the way, a significantly improved and continuously improving sports betting experience. I think were it not for that last part, the fact that we have ever increasing confidence in our sports betting offering, you spend money as much as you like, you're likely not to hold on to your players over time, because product is central to that the player retention objective. So the fact that the product is getting better, is already much better, is already much faster, more stable, that on the sports side now I'm talking, that we're able to offer some unique markets, differentiated sports betting markets powered by a business called Angstrom, which was acquired by Entain this year. That gives us even more confidence of that investing in accelerating growth in 2024 is the right thing for our business.
Absolutely. Central to that growth and as you say, that player retention, profitability. Number one spot in online casino, iGaming. Obviously, there's challenges, but BetMGM, objectively looking at a comfortable position at number one. Then in sports betting, in some states there's a number three for market share, number four. How do you view BetMGM's position at the moment within the market, sort of looking at the competition as well?
Yeah, so it's linked to my previous answer. It's we see an opportunity for us to get on the front foot more assertively in 2024. We I think on a competitive basis, partly linked to our focus on product development, partly linked to the drive for profitability. We had on a relative basis, I think the competitors were swinging harder and more in the second half of 2023, and I've had it. 2024 we're going to come out swinging and have the confidence to do so. I'm not expecting the competitive landscape to ease. We have some new entrants, as you know, and very credible new entrants. We are still proving day to day that we're able to recruit and retain players. And so, now it's time to pour fuel on the fire on top of an improved sports product, as I said, and improving.
Another question and probably another answer that'll again link back to probably your last two. A flurry of kind of new games and partnership announcements in the last few months. How important are these kind of deals? I think especially maybe with regards to maintaining that number one position on online casino. And I'm thinking of Relax Gaming, a recent deal, and there was the Buffalo Anaxi Online. I mean that's a big one.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of maintaining the position, how important are making the right deals at the right times, which is something you actually mentioned earlier as well in terms of deals and strategy and that kind of thing.
Tim, I think that's very important. I think one of the USPs of BetMGM is our in-house content. So we have in-house studios where we build our own games, and we also have exclusive content from development houses, game shops all over the world. We have a very talented team who spend a lot of time every week focusing on building the pipeline of things that make BetMGM different. We've in the last couple of months, we've launched the Borgata Arcade, where and the headline is "When Nostalgia and iGaming Collide," and it features iGaming content such as Lucky Tap, which is a branded title, Slingo, scratch games, game-themed slots. And for those who are familiar with the European iGaming landscape, imagine it like the games tab. You have your casino tab and a games tab on your site. So this is our US flavor of games tab. We also, as you checked, we were the first to launch the Buffalo games, an immensely popular land-based title. It's now within within a few weeks of launching with BetMGM. It's become one of our top 10 grossing titles, grossing slots. We've also got this interesting partnership, really partnership I'm very excited about, with a company called Atlantic Digital.
Mm-hmm.
And what they have is a whole suite of prominent film and TV titles, and we're building content to support them. Like the most recent, in fact, I think we've just launched it in one of our states, The Godfather. You know, the movie
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather. We've just released a Godfather slot. And so we're very optimistic about the impact that those branded, widely recognized brands, with the impact that they'll have on our iGaming market. And then our sports partners. We've just yesterday, I think, we talked about the extending our NHL league partnership. One of the things that we're doing to bring to life this kind of partnership is branded games. We were the first to introduce and launch an NHL endorsed slot, which is called NHL Gold Blitz. And we've got a number of partnerships with the Sixers branded games, the Jets branded games, the Lions, Detroit Lions branded games. And we see a lot of resonance of these games for particularly cross-product players. So sports betting players that get sold to iGaming, and then suddenly there's I bet the Oilers, and now I see an NHL slot. Oh, this feels good. This makes sense to me. And so let's zoom out, right? Why come to BetMGM? In iGaming, you come to BetMGM because you have all of the titles that are common. They are served in a way which is, I think, a great player experience, really efficient. But that's kind of table stakes, right? You come to BetMGM because you get things, you get game and gameplay experiences that you don't get anywhere else, and that's what we're investing in, and that's what our future is about. And I think it's very important for the future success and the primacy of our position in this market.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier the maybe the surprising speed and growth of iGaming in the US, but still, of course, legal in only a handful of states. I mean, big states that are generating, high revenues. But how much hope do you hold in the near future? And I'm not talking sort of next month, but just in the foreseeable future of any more states legalizing iGaming and online casino?
Yes. Again, I think this is one where you can take it. One needs to take a long-term view to get to the right answer. And on a long-term view, we will see a lot more states, in my view, a lot more states adopting iGaming legislation. What we can expect to see in 2024, I expect to see some iGaming legislation movement in iGaming legislation. Don't know that we're going to see any new states getting it over the line in 2024.
Sure.
But these things take time. Complex legislative and lobbying landscapes take time. And what we've seen in the land-based casino world is that it started with Nevada, right? It's many years ago. And now, I don't know, I should find out the number today of the number of states that have some kind of land-based casino offering.
Yeah.
There is no reason to believe that in the fullness of time, those with a land-based casino offering would not, in some shape or form, consider iGaming. So I'm macro, I'm very, very optimistic. Micro, I've come to appreciate the complexity of the legal process in the US. And so, is there time risk? Yes. Is there outcome risk? I feel much better about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. We've talked a lot about iGaming online casino. One more on the sports betting side, and something we touched on earlier, because you mentioned new entrants, obviously, this year in terms of headlines. Certainly not necessarily maybe in terms of market share yet or revenue, but in terms of headlines, Fanatics and especially ESPN Bet were big names that everyone's talked about. And I'm when I say everyone's talked about, I did a lot of talking about them myself, even here on the Huddle. How do you view their kind of entrances into the market and how that maybe does, maybe it doesn't, but how it alters the landscape?
Yeah. It certainly alters the landscape. I think in the first few weeks of ESPN's launch, I think the number was it's over 2 million downloads. That's just a super impressive number. I think I know Fanatics just has taken a different approach and started more slowly. Ultimately, success will depend on product and the total customer experience. We will have many thousands of customer contacts on a daily basis, many thousands, and how we respond to those inquiries, how we solve player problems, has an impact on how we are perceived as a brand, and has an impact on, frankly, the next choice that a player can make, which is stay or defect.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been at this for about 4.5 years now. Has BetMGM, and every day, I've said this before, every day we try to do a little bit better than yesterday. And so, and given the complexity of the operating environment, which I referred to earlier, there isn't really a shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really a shortcut on paying school fees. You've got to pay your school fees. You've got to learn along the way. And so, without seeking to diminish the competitive threat, which we would never do, that suggests a complacency which is just not in our fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Competing with the incumbent leaders requires a very, very high bar of total service proposition. Brand, product, player support, payment methods, compliance requirements, the whole gamut. And so, yeah, we're running our race, and we continue to try and get better every day.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, the no shortcuts line. It applies to everything, and even just in terms of the amount of investment that's needed, because just entering, as you say, just entering the US, I fancy the US, New Jersey tomorrow. Not that easy, not going to happen, and certainly everything we're discussing here is everything that's required. Coming towards the end of our conversation, unfortunately, but this next question. It's a big one, but it's one that you've probably faced from different interviewers, from different analysts, that maybe different investors. As we've talked already about the fact that it's a joint venture, Entain 50%, MGM 50%. Appreciate public companies. There's some things you can't say, but in terms of the future, is there anything you can tell us about the future of BetMGM, and especially recently? Entain CEO has recently left, so there's a leadership change at that company. Like I say, the floor is yours. What can you tell the Huddle about the future of BetMGM?
Yeah. I think as rational human beings and leaders, we have to play the card, we have to play the hand that we're dealt. And imagining or trying to hypothesize, crystal ball gaze, and imagine a future differently configured is not really productive at this point. I'm saying, and as we do every day, say to my wife, what's our best option given our current reality, right? And that's what we do. And as the leader of BetMGM, I'm saying, I don't control whether the joint venture stays configured as it is today, whether it changes at some point in the future. There's no shortage of industry commentators who have a perspective on, it gets played back to me. Oh no, joint venture will never last. It has to change. Entain's going to do this and MGM's going to do that, or no, someone's going to come over the top and do the whole thing. And all I know is that it is what it is today. And until it isn't, we are going to make the very, very best of our current reality. We are working incredibly productively with Entain. They've been through a process, been through a journey, and continue to go through a journey themselves. But the parts that impact BetMGM are in better shape than at any time along this journey, ironically, because I think that's not quite the external perception. They have in the areas on which we rely on technology, on product, they have a really passionate, incredibly talented leader who's a partner to BetMGM, and we are working with very, very constructively to achieve our journey to best product. They and we are on the journey to best product and won't give up until we're there, and that's it.
My final question for you, Adam, given everything that we've discussed, which is a lot, what are your main individual goals as an executive, as the BetMGM CEO, and company goals, which we probably have touched on a few already heading into 2024?
My individual goals is to be proud of myself and proud of our business, which means showing up with integrity, showing up fairly, being a reliable partner, looking after our players. That's the personal side. The professional side, we've said to the market, $500 million of EBITDA in 2026. We won't rest until that is achieved. But what is that more tactically? What does that mean for 2024? It means journey to best product, which I've talked about. It's integrating Angstrom. It's improving our parlay offering. It's building out the exclusive roadmap that I talked so enthusiastically about, that I have visibility of. Right? There aren't things that are impeding our ability to get there. So, journey to best product, more resources, Angstrom I've spoken about, exclusive games, and then the last element for 2024 is unlocking Nevada and omnichannel. This is one of BetMGM's differentiators. MGM in Las Vegas is royalty, and we have to bring that royalty to bear for the benefit of BetMGM in a way that we haven't yet. And I'm excited about it, very excited about it. So, yeah, that's what success looks like.
Well, plenty to look forward to. And Adam, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your time and your answers, and best of luck with everything at BetMGM. I have a feeling we'll be speaking again sometime in the future, probably after a big story's broken and some major developments. But as I say, best of luck and thanks for all your time and your answers.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Tim.
No problem. Thank you. And to our viewers, thanks for watching. See you next time.